Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the call. So, I'm going to talk a little bit this morning about the holidays. Of course, right? Um, so, I'm going to talk a little bit about managing the holidays as gentle parents. But mostly, this talk is really just an opportunity to remind y'all that it's okay to honor yourselves and your family and have limits and boundaries because the holiday season is busy and you're getting towed here and there, and there's 1,001 different social beliefs and traditions and constructs and everything going on. And we've got, some of these traditions that feel kind of good and they're kind of fun, and some of these traditions that are way outside of anything that we're comfortable with. And then we've got all the people towing us here and people towing us there, and the events and the getting off of schedules and the getting off of diets and routines and all of the different things that come up for us around the holiday season. And um, the holidays just being kind of a big spending time of year, and a time of year when things are pretty economically shut down and it's cold and dreary and wintry. You can hear me add a lot of my own inflections about the holidays too as I break it down and talk about it. And um, so, what I'm getting at, obviously, is some of the holiday stuff is good and some of it is not so great. And some of it is really good, but there's a little too much of it. And, there's all these different things to balance. And throughout the entire season, the underlying is that family is also really present. And that has a lot of different layers for us as well. Some of it feels really good and some of it doesn't feel that great, right? um, so when we go to manage the holidays, thinking about our family and our family's needs and how far outside of our routines we can comfortably go without having a huge crash. All of those things are really important, like preemptive care for how we're going to go into the holiday season. And, more as a reminder because, um, I know that you all like to or have been working on practicing limits and boundaries and doing things that feel more comfortable. But the holidays put on a lot of pressure. So it's more of a reminder that it's okay to set a boundary with family and say, yeah, maybe I'm not coming to this event, or to have a limit and say, yeah, sure, I'll come to this event, but I'm not showing up Christmas morning at 9 a.m. and staying until Christmas afternoon or night at 9 p.m. Like, this isn't a 12-hour event. Like, I'll show up for 2 hours sometime in a comfortable time zone for myself and my family. Maybe, right? Like, if we decide to do it with a limit. And I'll stay for a comfortable time. And but the other thing that I did want to mention, just beyond that affirmation that the way you do things is great, and you don't have to give in to all the pressures. But I want to talk for a minute about Christmas traditions. Some of them feel really good, and some of them are really fun. We set up the tree last night, and you know, my kids are pretty spread out in age, so we don't have too many moments where it's like all of us together participating in the same activities with a ton of connectivity. Well, setting up the Christmas tree is one of those times when, no matter the age, everybody still wants to participate from biggest to smallest. Um, and the kids were singing, and like, it was so warm and cozy. And um, so when it comes to Christmas traditions, some of them feel really good and some of them don't. And it's totally okay, particularly when breaking generational cycles, to create our own new traditions around holidays, to let go of traditions that are kind of harmful or cause more distress than anything. For example, around all holidays, I've noticed, particularly the eating holidays, like everybody's preparing these big foods and like these big feasts, and the whole place just smells like good food, but nobody can touch any of that until it's feast time. And everybody's going hungry the day before a feast, and leading up to a feast, everybody's like starving. And, breaking that tradition in certain ways where we're like, oh, you want a piece of pie? Yeah, that's for the feast. But why can we not take a piece out of that pie? And that's one of the traditions that I have been breaking for a long time. Maybe other people aren't comfortable with that because they really care about their presentation. But like, we have a secondary pie always, so you can put the, like, I mean, I don't know. That's pie is my favorite food. There's like, if there was nothing else at a feast, pie would be what I would be bringing. um. So, anyways, we have that ability to create our own traditions. Another thing too is like around Christmas presents, there can be a lot of stress and anxiety for little kids. I like to talk to my kids about presents and give them the full information about it. I definitely like things to be under the tree because I remember that as a kid, and my mom was like really good about that. And I would always save like their best presents for Christmas Day, but things that had a lot of play value, like crayons and paper, and maybe puzzles or a new game and things like that. Leading up to Christmas, when they start getting really anxious about not being able to open a present, always had like a few of the cheap, like, the little filler type presents that they could open, and it would give them a lot of play value and a lot of joy and relieve the stress and anxiety around, like, leading up to Christmas and all of that. So, and some, because kids are different, some of my kids don't really like to engage in that. They'd rather save them all. And other ones, and the age and the control around it is contributed to, like the impulse control. But at the end of the day, I don't like to create stress around presents. And like, if the kid's gonna melt down and like have this big thing, I'd rather give them their presents, because I don't want that stress around the presents. Like, even all of the presents, if it's become that big of a deal, but it's never become that big of a deal because I always had those little side presents that could take off the like thing. But like, if my child was completely melting down and needed all those presents, and you've got these big presents under the tree causing anxiety and they're theirs, I'm like, why would I stand between that and create that around Christmas? Because traditions, right? Like, and so I question those traditions, and I work with them in ways that kind of feel like I'm upholding Christmas, the way that, like, the good parts that I enjoyed celebrating as a kid without some of the harsher parts that I didn't enjoy. But we get to make all of those choices around the holidays, and we get to make all of those choices around the holidays and do things in the way that feels best to us and feels best to our kids and best to our family. And we get to create the traditions in ways that feel really good and different, and we don't have to be stuck in any of the binary things. And like, if anything I said about the way that I do things doesn't feel good to you, of course don't give those a try. But finding the ones that do feel good to you and leaning into those, and seeing the ones that could, for me, I guess there was a lot of anxiety around the holding back of things, because in both the food example and the present example, um, I talked about the anxiety that it created, and so much of what I talk about comes from the things that I've observed, not only in myself, but, like, in my family and in the people I've worked with and everything. Is that, like, a lot of withholding and all of that happens around, like, this image of a big thing that happens in a moment causes people a lot of distress, like causes children to be melting down and crying, and like all this like stuff that doesn't really belong in a holiday season. And there are certainly ways around it where we can even still participate in the core, like the core things, without it being like some big, heavy, dramatic, unhappy Christmas holiday. And there's certain things about the holidays, obviously, that like I don't even mention in this group because we're like way past that. Like, Santa pictures when the kids don't want to sit on Santa's lap. And there's all kinds of traditions that people participate in. There's even like a a Facebook meme that circulates every year about throwing Christmas presents into the fire or fake Christmas presents into the fire to get children to behave, and, all the naughty and nice stuff. But just as an affirmation, again, it's like whatever you do and however you do it will be incredibly awesome and amazing and wonderful and beautiful. And I hope that everybody has an amazing holiday, no matter like what holidays they celebrate. So, um, awesome. I will shut off the recording and get to the sharing portion of the call.